everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ron, and today we're going to be going over some more Overclock builds in Deep Red Galactic. This time we're going to be looking at the Bulldog Heavy Revolver. This is Gunner's first secondary weapon. So let's start out with the clean one. We have one, which is Chain Hit. This just makes it so if you hit a weak spot, then you have a 75% chance of the bullet ricocheting into an enemy within 5 meters. Pretty straightforward, and if I'm using this one, I usually just go with my regular revolver build, which for tier 1, it's really your choice between whether you want the quick fire ejector for a faster reload or you want the perfect weight balance for less spread. I usually go with less spread. This also makes it a little bit easier to hit weak spots because the gun just isn't bouncing around as much. In tier 2, I usually go for extra ammo just because I like having a little bit of extra ammo, although you could go with the increased caliber rounds because you essentially have the same choice down here, and then I usually just switch between the two, so whether I want damage here and ammo here, or whether I want ammo here and damage here. In tier 3, I pretty much always go for hollow point bullets with this build. That way I get even more damage once I hit something in the weak spot, so then I can usually kill it. You can usually kill stuff with a revolver. You hit them in the weak spot, unless there's something large like a Praetorian or something like that. And then for tier 5, I usually go with Deadeye, although neurotoxin coating isn't really that bad either, because this can just apply extra damage to large targets. So if you want more accuracy, you can take Deadeye. If you want just more damage, you can take neurotoxin coating. It's your choice. This build works perfectly fine. I've used it on, I think, every difficulty with and without chain hit, and had pretty good success with it. So let's talk about some of the balanced overclocks. And our first one is Homebrew powder, which this one makes it so you can either high roll or low roll your damage. You can do double damage, or you can do 75% damage, or anywhere in between. So there is a chance of you just doing the base damage, or doing slightly more or slightly less than that, in which case breakpoints don't matter as much. Not really going for breakpoints with this. Even so, even if you low roll it, I think if you have the just one damage upgrade to this, you can still one-shot grunts if you hit them in the head. So it's not that big a deal to be running Homebrew powder, and that's usually the way that I build it, is the exact same way that I just kind of showed you guys. So just going something like this, that works out very well. And you can high roll some hits, so you can kill things like Praetorians and Dreadnoughts a little bit faster, or Oppressors a little bit quicker. You could also switch this around if you're feeling more confident in the damage and you don't feel like you need the high velocity rounds. Go with more ammunition, that way you get to shoot more. That works too, I've used that. You could also go with blow through rounds here too if you want, if you wish to try to punch through multiple enemies. That's really about the only changes that I make to this build, and even so, I usually still hang out with this same build. Our next overclock, I guess, will be the Volatile bullets. This one is kind of an interesting one, because this one makes it so you do 4 times extra damage if the target is burning. This is really good if you combine it with the Burning Hell overclock with the minigun. That way you have a reliable source of igniting enemies, and if you're taking the incendiary grenade as well, that can also help. Or if you're just playing with teammates that you know are running things like the Flamethrower Driller, in which case you don't necessarily even need those other ones. This does make it so you hit way harder against those enemies, and even if you're not, you still have enough damage to usually kill anything like grunts with one shot with this, or even web spitters if you hit them in their weak spots. So you can go the exact same build that I showed, picking whatever you want on tier 1, going with ammo, going with hollow points, going with high velocity rounds, and then either neurotoxin coating or Deadeye. If you are dead set that you're only going to use this against enemies that are on fire, I would recommend just going full ammo. That way you can get even more damage out of your gun, because I believe having double the ammunition will do more than just having 20 more damage added to your weapon. So just go with more ammo if you want to do that. Otherwise, it's your choice. You could go with the same build, or you can mix up the build however you want. Again, this one is just a bonus if you can guarantee things being on fire. Next up, we got 6-shooter. This increases your revolver to actually hold 6 rounds. You get 6 more max ammo, you get 2 more rate of fire. You do get an increase to your base spread, and you also get an increase to your reload time. So naturally, I usually just want to roll back the minuses of this and focus on its strengths. So in tier 1, I go with quick fire ejector. This pretty much puts the revolver's reload back into the base reload, so it's not a big deal. In tier 2, I usually go with floating barrel. This is just to minimize recoil. However, you could also go with direct damage or expanded ammo bags. Either of these are pretty good. In tier 3, I still go with hollow point rounds just so that I can hit weak spots a little bit easier. In tier 4, I usually go with ammo here over damage, but you could go with damage because you do get a little bit of extra ammo. So this one's your call here. And then I go with the Deadeye so that I have no aim penalty when I'm moving. This just kind of makes up for some of the weaker parts of 6-shooter and makes it a much better overclock. Sometimes I do switch between the tier 1s though, so that I can have less base spread, so I'm not as concerned about that if I want to go for even more accuracy and keep this really on target. Because the way that I use 6-shooter is usually either I take my time and take my shots, one grunt at a time or whatever it might be, acid spitter, web spitter, or if there's something like a Praetorian or a Dreadnought or an Oppressor, I just try to get right behind it and empty pretty much the entire revolver as fast as I can. Alright, now we're moving on to the unstable overclocks, and first up we got Elephant Rounds. This one doubles your damage, halves your maximum ammo, takes 1 round out of your magazine, increases your reload speed, but decreases the spread, but increases the spread per shot and increases the recoil. This pretty much turns your revolver into a sniper rifle. I've found that I like 2 different ways to build this weapon, either trying to make up for some of its weaknesses and just going with the base increase in damage that it gives, which works pretty well, or embracing the weaknesses that I have and just going full damage with it. So for kind of mitigating some of the weaknesses to it, I usually go with quickfire ejector so that I can have the faster reloads again. I usually take expanded ammo bags in tier 2, that way I at least have the base amount of ammunition. I go with hollow point rounds for the extra damage that it gives me. This can really help against Praetorians and Dreadnoughts. You do a ton of damage with the elephant rounds, or even to something like the Omen Tower. I usually go with even more ammunition, so at least I have some shots. And then I go with Deadeye, so at least then I can hit targets while I'm on the move, because it is pretty noticeable. And the way that I generally use this is I fire 1 shot out and then wait if it's a long range shot, because it will take a while for my gun to come back down to where I have a good amount of spread. And if I'm firing at something at long range, I usually don't need to rapidly follow up on another shot. If I'm using this at close range, then I'll just keep firing it and try to kill whatever enemy it is. If you want to go with the more damaging build, I'd recommend just switching these 2. This gives you the maximum amount of damage that you can have. Well, I guess if you take neurotoxin rounds, it would give you the maximum amount of damage that you can have. You are reduced to then only holding 12 rounds in your gun, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because if you're taking this with either one of your primary weapons and you're going with a more ammo overclock, you can definitely make up for that. And that's usually what I do if I'm taking this particular build. If I'm taking the other build, then I can usually take whatever other build I want to take with either the heavy autocannon or with the minigun. And then our last overclock here is Magic Bullets. And Magic Bullets is probably one of my favorite overclocks because it is so much fun. I really didn't think when I first started out using it that I would like it as much as I did, but I do. This makes it so you have a 100% chance guaranteed of having your bullets ricochet towards a nearby enemy whenever you shoot near them. You lose out on 20 direct damage. That is okay though, because you don't want to be directly hitting enemies with this. It's okay to hit in an area. For this, I pretty much always go with a quickfire ejector. There's not really a reason to go with increased accuracy with this weapon, because you just have to hit near the enemy. For tier 2, I go with more ammo. We don't really care about damage because we've already lost some of our damage and we're going for more of an AoE with this, so we might as well just double down on our ammo. Also, same with the spread and recoil, like we explained in part 1, it's not really needed for this. In tier 3, we're going to go with explosive rounds. This lowers our direct damage even further, but it gives us AoE damage. In tier 4, once again, we go with even more ammo. Again, we're not really all that concerned with getting our damage up. We just want to have the most amount of ammo that we can so that we can keep ricocheting these and keep using this in an AoE setting. And then in tier 5, we're definitely going to go with neurotoxin rounds, because this can splash the neurotoxin poison onto nearby enemies, dealing damage to them and damage over time. This is pretty much the best build that I've found for magic bullets. You could always go with something like increasing your base damage if you wanted, but I feel like that has diminishing returns as opposed to just going with more ammunition. Same thing with the increased accuracy. I don't find it to be all that big a deal if my gun isn't the most accurate, because that's not really what this build is about. So these are all my builds for the Bulldog Heavy Revolver. Next up, we're going to be looking at the Burst Fire Gun, which is another really fun secondary weapon to be using, especially with overclocks. Tell me your thoughts on the Bulldog Heavy Revolver. Tell me if this helped you down in the comments below. If you're new here and you like this type of video, be sure that you get subscribed. That way you get notifications whenever I post them. Special thanks to all the supporters of the channel. If you would like your name on this board, be sure to join the channel as a member or go over to my Patreon and join there. You can do this for as low as $1 a month, and you get early access to early videos such as this one. And if you would like to see my other Deep Rock Galactic content, be sure to check over here. I have more builds, more guides, especially builds without the overclocks too. So be sure to check that out if you're just getting into the game, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!